Fellas, welcome back to Today in Combat. I'm Bradley Gleason, live from the road, Massachusetts, just outside of Gillette Stadium, Foxborough. It's been a nice change up, a nice little change of pace. The hotel, not ideal. I feel like I have to be a little bit quiet, but I got this nice mic. Hopefully I'm not talking too loud. Hopefully everybody can hear me. And we got a packed show for you today. We got a couple things. First of all, we're going to break down UFC 313. We got to talk about it. The fallout, Alex Pereira losing. Where's he going to go? Is he going to do the rematch? Is he going to go up to heavyweight? What do we do next with Magomed? We're also going to talk about Des Moines, Iowa, because we've got a lot of fights confirmed for that. Corey Sandhagen, Davidson Figueiredo, Bo Nickal, Rainier Day Ritter. Weird. Let's start there. I'll talk about it a little bit later, but let's start there. Weird. Not bad matchups, but weird. So we're going to talk about that, and then, we'll touch a little bit on UFC Fight Night, Vettori versus Gaethje, but let's be honest, it's kind of a snooze fest, so let's not pretend like we need to do a full breakdown on that. You don't give a shit. Take the week off. Just enjoy the weekend. If you want to watch a rematch between Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze, be my guest. I'm an addict. That's a problem I got in my life. I'm an addict, so I'm going to. But let's be real about it. It's not the best fight in the world, and it's a rematch. Okay, UFC 313. Let's get started. I wanna try to bump through some shit today. We're aiming for 15 strong. Usually I've been giving you 30s, usually 45s. I'm giving you 15 strong here, so we're not gonna waste too much time. Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, UFC 313, went down last week, T-Mobile Arena, and we have a new champion. Magomed Ankalaev took down the reigning champ, Alex Poatan Pereira, the man, the myth, the legend. And he looked decent doing it. Let's be honest about it. You can talk as much shit as you want about Magomed Ankalaev, but the performance he put on was impressive. For as not fantastic as that fight was, you can't talk shit about Magomed Ankalaev, because what did he do? First of all, he didn't really wrestle all that much, although he did. I mean, he won the fourth round pretty much strictly wrestling. And I actually had a comment that was like, you know, one of my posts, one of my reels or my shorts this week was like, how long before Magomed gets a takedown? And the guy after the fight came back and he's like, look at that, he didn't even wrestle. I was like, bro, he wrestled. Just because he didn't get the takedown doesn't mean he didn't wrestle. He did wrestle, but he did some nasty work on the feet, which was the most impressive part. Like, the most hurt anybody in that fight was Alex Pereira at the end of, what was it, the second round? I think it was the second round, maybe the third, in which Magomed caught him and stumbled Alex Pereira in that fight. So you got to give a lot of props to the champ. Now, there was some controversy in scoring. You know, me personally, I haven't rewatched the fight, to be fair, but live scoring, I did have Alex Pereira, I think 1-3-5, which I believe would make round 2 the round that he got dropped in. Second round, hurts him. Fourth round, you know, wrestled throughout that entire round. And then across all judges' scorecards, Alex Pereira got the 5th. One was close, not a ton going on. I thought Alex did a little bit more damage with the legs. He started, you know, we talked about it beforehand. You want to get those leg kicks started early and often, because we've seen that be a problem for Magomed in the last fight. Didn't seem to be an issue here, and he took a ton of them. If we're just looking at the, let me get to UFC stats real quick. I want to look at how many times he actually chopped the legs. So Alex Pereira to the legs, landed 63%. Let's get I wish I could get a number on that. Clinch down, landed 48 of 55 leg strikes. So chopped at those legs 50 times damn near. And Magomed seemed to walk through it pretty well. Like, I don't know about you, I didn't notice any, you know, his legs were definitely damaged and red, but I didn't notice, like in the Jan Blachowicz fight where we had those big bad false steps. I didn't see that out of Magomed. Total strikes while we're here, and this is not always the, you know, this doesn't always tell the story, but Alex Pereira was 76 of 137 on significant strikes. Magomed Ankalaev 94 of 180. So actually seeing here, significant strike-wise, looking like Magomed outlanded him. It felt like Alex was a little trigger shy. And that could have to do with facing a wrestler and just like always being wary of the takedown. I think we kind of saw that with Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili too, where you feel like those guys are just maybe overly worried about the takedown to the point where they don't necessarily want to put themselves in positions to get taken down, get their shots ducked under, and allow those wrestlers to get those deep shots. But Alex did props to the guy, did a great job fending off Magomed and didn't allow him to have any takedowns. 0 for 12. Alex says Alex was 0 for 1, but he did have that sneaky one at the end of, I think it was the end of 3. Or maybe, I don't know. I'd have to rewatch it, but you know what I'm talking about. Had that sneaky little toss at the end of the round. But Magomed 0 for 12, so a big feather in the cap of Alex Pereira, but it did just feel like he didn't really let go as much as you wanted to. Now, what does that mean for the fellas? We have a new champion. We have Alex Pereira, which is still, I think, probably one of the biggest stars in the UFC. So what do you do with these guys? What do you do with Alex Pereira at this point? I mean, there's really 2 options you can give him. You can give him the Magomed rematch, which I think he deserves. There's no clear number 1 at light heavyweight. Alex Pereira's defended his belt against, how many defenses? He's got won it from Yuri, Jamal, Yuri, Khalil. So he defended 3 times and then lost on the 4th. But again, no clear number 1 contender at light heavyweight. So that's an option. Or we're going up. Heavyweight division. And I think that actually is really fun. Obviously, the heavyweights are in a weird spot right now where we're still waiting on Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall to kind of figure it out. Presumably on Jon Jones' side, really to figure out a date and get them booked and signed. But even if that fight is the one to be, I don't necessarily think Alex waits. It seems at this point in his career, Jon Jones is going to fight once a year. So, I mean, best case scenario, Tom wins. I think you can get a quick turnaround. But if Jon wins, we're looking at probably 2026 before he comes back. I mean, if we just look at the career, I can't actually even say that because he dealt with an injury after Cyril. But again, I feel like once a year is probably right for Jon Jones. And heavyweights in general, it's not even just Jon Jones. It's very common in the heavyweight division where you're doing once a year for those guys. So I don't think Alex waits, which brings me to the next option at heavyweight. If he does just want to, same thing he did at middleweight, lose and go up. He fought Jan Blachowicz his first fight at light heavyweight. I think he can fight Cyril Gane. I think that's a fantastic freaking fight. A fantastic fight. And we need something to do with Cyril as well. He's coming off of a weird win against I was going to say Alexander Volkanovski, but it's not. Alexander Volkov. He's coming off that weird win against Alexander Volkov. The heavyweight division is kind of in no man's land past Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall because of that, to be honest. So I think that's a great fight. Also, Cyril's not a huge heavyweight. I think he weighs like 245 maybe. And Alex walking around is probably at that same weight. I mean, even if he's at 230, it's not a huge, they're both about the same size. He's a big freaking dude. So I think that would be a great option. And you're talking about just stylistically, Cyril's a kickboxer. Alex is a kickboxer. It would go down on the feet. The problem with Cyril Gane is when he gets taken down, he's fucked. We saw it against Jon Jones. We saw it against Volkov. When he gets taken down, he's fucked. If you think it's going to go better with Tom Aspinall, there's always a chance you can land that one. But Cyril has not shown to this point that he has shored up any of those wrestling techniques. And Alex Pereira ain't going to take it down. So just stylistically, I think that's a really fun fight and could kind of get and winnable fight for Alex. Hard to pick against him, although he is going up and Cyril's a much bigger guy. I take that back, not even much bigger guy. Although Cyril's a bigger guy and he's going up in heavyweight, and more so we've seen the chin of Alex Pereira get tested by, both Israel Adesanya, Khalil Roundtree, and now Magomed Ankalaev. He's not unkillable, this guy. But just stylistically, I think that would be really fun. honestly probably better stylistically for him than a Tom Aspinall or John Jones, whoever wins that fight, because it feels like, although that could be disputed now that he had that performance against Magomed Ankalaev, feels like, you know, there's a more clear path to victory there. But I think there's options for Alex Pereira, and I don't think he needs a belt to sell. That's the great thing about him. I think the loss, although I think the performance hurts him more than the loss, I think he can still sell without the belt. And it just feels like one of those where it just stylistically felt like a bad matchup on paper. I think people that didn't watch the fight and just going to look back at the career or look back at, you know, his wins and losses, they're going to see Magomed Ankalaev, they're going to see that freaking beard with no mustache and go, makes sense why I lost that one, even though the fight didn't necessarily play out in that way. So I think there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with Alex Pereira. Magomed Ankalaev, on the other hand, again, he's in the same position. You're either taking a rematch, or the next option for me, at least, I'm looking at the Jan Blachowicz and Carlos Ulberg fight as kind of a number one contender. We don't know what, I mean, you can always stick Yuri back in there, but and he is coming off a win against Jamal Hill. And I think that that's honestly probably more likely what the UFC is going to do, just because of the draw power of Yuri Prochazka, and he's a star in his own right. I think that makes sense. He's number 2 in the division, but you know, he had 2 title shots already, and I guess technically he's had 3 title shots. Won the belt, lost twice fighting for the belt, and I don't know. It's going to be Yuri Prochazka now that I think about it. It's probably going to be Yuri Prochazka. I think if Carlos Ulberg or Jan Blachowicz, for that matter, makes a big statement in their fight in London, I think that could shake things up. Just because of the history with Jan Blachowicz. I mean, they fought to a draw. The first time him and Magomed fought for the title was to a draw. And then Carlos Ulberg hasn't fought for the belt, but he'd be on a pretty massive win streak. And undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. No, he's 12-1, but I don't think he's lost in the UFC. And he has he lost in his debut. That's right, to Kennedy Nzechukwu. I'm saying that wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. He's up at heavyweight now, but regardless, lost in his debut. But after that, rattled off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. His last one being against Volkan Ozdemir at November 23rd, 2024. I think that was a fight night in Macau. That's what it was, a fight night in Macau. Interesting. I think it's probably Yuri now that I think about it a little harder, or really just because, you know, he's coming off that big win. He is a star in and of himself. Yuri's going to be it. Yuri's going to be it unless Jan or Carlos makes a big statement. But yeah, good fight. I mean, wasn't the most action-packed fight. Again, I think Alex was a little shy to pull the trigger. And but I think both fighters kind of shocked us. Am I wrong about that? Like, Alex defending 12 takedowns, not getting taken down once, supremely impressive. What Magomed was able to do on the feet to Alex Pereira, supremely impressive. So although the fight itself was not the most action-packed, I think both these fighters showed a different wrinkle to their game. And, you know, you'd like Magomed to kind of win in emphatic fashion, just to kind of put a stamp on it and really get that rub off of Alex Pereira. Him going to decision didn't, you know, probably reaffirm some casuals, but I think both guys had a good performance, and really the things that we were worried about for both of them, it was almost opposite. Like, we were worried about Magomed if he ended up having to strike. We were worried about Alex if he ended up getting taken down. It was almost like, you know, the roles were reversed in some sense, where Magomed was looking fantastic on the feet and Alex's wrestling was looking fantastic. So fun. We also had Justin Gaethje beating Rafael Fiziev. What a fucking fun fight. You know, we got exactly what we wanted out of these two, which was just a pure blown war. Justin Gaethje getting a big knockdown, a nasty uppercut in the second round, and then Fiziev coming back in the third on fire. I mean, the first half of that round, the way he was digging to the body, those kicks were gross. Fiziev seemed to be right back in action. You could tell, I mean, 2 weeks notice, 8 days notice, whatever the case would be, you could tell that gas tank maybe wasn't completely where it needed to be, but that's going to happen on a short notice fight. But he looked good. I think he won the first. I thought Justin won second and third, but he looked good regardless all the way throughout. I was kind of surprised to see Fiziev talking about via the Ariel Helwani show going down to 145. Because I think he's still very competitive. Like losing to Justin Gaethje, no harm, no foul on that at all. I mean, Justin Gaethje is the third ranked in the division and has wins over guys like Dustin Poirier. Got wins over Chandler. I mean, he's beat a lot of these guys behind him, as well as Fiziev before, you know? But both of the fights were fun and competitive. So I was surprised to see Fiziev talking about going down to 145. I think there are some fun fights for him. I'm not mad if he just feels better than at that weight. You know, his reasoning being was like 155 was so easy to make. I think I can drop down to 145 and make a real play for it. I feel like he may feel like he got set back a bit with this, but I don't necessarily think so. Like you could make a Fiziev Dan Hooker. No problem. You know, Dan Hooker fell out, let him heal up, let Fiziev heal up. You can make a Fiziev Dan Hooker and stick him, you know, right back at the top of that division, and that would be another fantastic freaking fight. You could make Fiziev Max Holloway. You can make Fiziev winner of Chandler and Patty. You could do Fiziev Dariush. There's a ton of ways that Fiziev can get back into that picture, and I think he's still only 2 fights away from really being in contention for a shot at that belt. But if we did look down and check Fiziev down at 145, we're looking at fights like, I mean, Fiziev Diego Lopez would be so much fun. Fiziev Yair Rodriguez would be a fantastic fight. Just the high-level kicking in that fight would be over the top. That would be so fun. Fiziev Arnold Allen would be great. And to be honest, 145 could use some fresh blood if we're being 100%. Like, you got Ilias left, Alex Diego fighting for the belt, then you have Max Holloway, then you have Mozart, then you have Yair, Brian Ortega, Arnold Allen, Josh Emmett, Aljamain. Who's Lerone Murphy fighting? Lerone Murphy's fighting somebody coming up. I think he's fighting Josh Emmett, is that right? Yeah, Josh Emmett, and they are fighting... No, it's going to be a main event, so it's a fight night on April 5th. So another one working up the ranks, but I think Fiziev could slide into that division and there'd be a handful of fun fights for him. Honestly, I think 155 still has the better fights for Fiziev, and I don't think he's that far away from the belt, so I'm kind of hoping he sticks. But Justin Gaethje, on the other hand, just picked up another big win. Hard to get out of that top 5, I'll tell you that about Justin Gaethje. I mean, he's been put 2 times now against Fiziev where people thought he was gonna take his spot. I mean, he was the dog in this fight after he had already won the previous fight. So props to Justin Gaethje, a tough motherfucker, as we knew. And he's looking to work his way back up to a title, and I can't disagree with it. You know, you got to kind of see how Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira kind of fall out. You got to see how that situation plays out. You also have to see how Ilya gets introduced. So there's a lot of action at 155 right now that is muddying up that belt picture for Justin Gaethje, but, I mean, he's right in there. I don't think you go back to the Dan Hooker. I don't think you go back to the well with that. And I know he doesn't want to fight down again. He's looking to fight up. You know, you just don't know how much longer you have with Justin Gaethje. So I know he's probably looking to fight up. I'd say in the grand scheme of things, I think we're either going to get Islam Ilya, best case scenario, Arman Charles 2, hopefully a 5-rounder this time, and really play that one out. Justin Gaethje is kind of the odd man out of that 4-piece right there. Unless for whatever reason Ilya doesn't get the next crack at the title, they give it to either Arman or Charles. I think Ilya files into whoever didn't get that place. So just a tough spot for Justin Gaethje, especially after giving a number 11 guy a chance on short notice. a tough spot for Justin Gaethje. I don't see a clear picture back to him, at least in the next fight. I think he's going to have to fight one more, which also kind of means if he wants to fight up in the rankings, he's going to be waiting for those 2 fights to play out. But, you know, after a war like that, you want to give him a little bit of time, but we just don't know how soon these other 2 fights are being made and when they're going to happen, which is a little worrisome. You don't want Justin Gaethje going another year without having any sort of action. You know, what is he, 34? I hate the UFC's website, man. Give me some real stats. I'm talking about age. I'm talking about height. That's really what I want to know. Let's call him 34. Could be wrong, could be right, but it feels right. It feels right in my mind. Also on that card, some real standouts. Jalen Turner, Inacio Bahamondes. Inacio with a submission. Didn't have that on my bingo card. Jalen Turner after the fact saying he's going to retire. That hurts my heart a little bit. But, you know, I get it. If a fighter says he doesn't want to fight anymore, then you got to kind of trust him, because the last thing you want to do is go into a fight half-assed, and that's kind of, I guess, how he felt. So props to Jalen Turner, great career. If he does stay retired, I feel like just making the switch up to 170 where he's not having to do those massive weight cuts might make a big difference for him and allow him to fall back in love a little bit, eat a little bit more. But props to Jalen Turner and props to Inacio Bahamondes. What a performance. What a performance to get you into the top 15. I don't think the rankings have been updated yet, at least not on my screen. Let me look. Is Inacio Bahamondes now in? Yeah, 15. He's now 15. So welcome to the top 15, Inacio Bahamondes. It is a who's who above you, so best of luck to you, brother. But impressive performance. I mean, for Jalen to take him down and Inacio from his back to throw up that triangle, impressive stuff. Impressive stuff in the first round, too. Mauricio Ruffy. What can you say about the guy? The Fighting Nerds. Holy shit, are these guys good. Holy shit, are these guys good. Who can stop them? Who can stop the Fighting Nerds? I don't know what their record is in the UFC, but it's undefeated. I think 15, 14-0 or something like that. Incredible. Maybe not that high. I don't know how many fights they've actually had. And it's not just that they're winning. They're putting people's lights out. They're putting people's lights out, like walk-away finishes. Ruffy didn't follow up. Gene Silva in his last fight didn't have to follow up. Carlos Prates, Neil Magny didn't have to follow up. He connected with 1 or 2, but I mean, they're walk-away KOs. They're not even close to being not KOs. I mean, they are sleep fest KOs. Impressive. Kyle Bahio in his last fight, I mean, he's the highest rank right now, kind of team captain. And his last fight puts out Jared Cannonier. And he's the one of any of them that has the, the least amount of knockouts, but he's still sleeping people. So shout to I fucking love that team. I love that. I got to get myself a t-shirt. I fucking love the Fighting Nerds. They're so much fun, and they're just sleeping people, which is so fucking fun. So props to the boy. Josh Van with a big win. Bruno Pereira, my dog. This was one of my sneaky picks. I wasn't expecting a submission, but Bruno Pereira got a win against Armin Petrosian. Couple weird decisions off the rip, but overall, I thought it was a pretty solid card. I mean, you get knockouts like the Mauricio Ruffy knockout, you get Inacio Bahamondes first round submission, you get Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev, fantastic fight. We had interesting fight in the main event. We get a new champ crowned. I thought overall a pretty freaking good card. Now we just got to see how things fall out for these guys. Now we just have to see how things fall out. But the nice thing about Magomed winning this fight is it feels like it reopens that light heavyweight division to have some movement. Whether they can beat Magomed Ankalaev or not, who's to say? Only time will tell. But it feels like it reopens that division because Alex had ran through the top of that division so fast. Yuri, Jamal, Khalil. There wasn't, outside of Magomed, any clear contenders. So I think if I had my pick, we go Alex at heavyweight, we go Magomed a new route rather than having the rematch, but I could go either way. I mean, it's just one of those fights where I'm like, I don't have to see this again. It wasn't like an incredible war or anything like that, but I'm not saying the next one couldn't be better. I'm not saying Alex couldn't sleep or Magomed couldn't take him down. I think with some tweaks, it could be a better fight. But we might as well just see Alex Pereira go up to heavyweight and let's just have some fun. Let's have some fucking fun, huh? That brings us to Des Moines, Iowa. I'll be honest, I don't know what they're doing in Des Moines. I don't know what the fuck they're doing in Des Moines, Iowa. And it's not that the fights are bad. First of all, Des Moines is such a fucking weird place in general to have like a massive fight card. And let's be clear, it's a massive fight card. Headlined by Corey Sandhagen, Deiveson Figueiredo. Following that, Bo Nickal, Rainier de Ritter. Jeremy Stevens getting re-signed to the UFC off of his big knockout in BKFC against Eddie Alvarez. That's nice to see. I think that's a hometown boy too in Des Moines, Iowa, so that's fun. Those are the only 3 fights that we have announced for that card right now. I don't understand exactly the matchmaking here. Like Corey Sandhagen, Deiveson Figueiredo, a fantastic fight, but when you're looking at the top of that bantamweight division, what does it do for either of these fighters? Like if they get the win here, is it a number 1 contender? I don't necessarily think so because Petr Yan's not in the fight. And I think outside of Sean O'Malley Merab, which seems to be the matchup that's going to get made, Petr Yan should be at the top of the list for next shots. But I don't think it's going to be quite literally next shot. I think, like I said, Merab, Sean O'Malley are going to fight. You want Petr to have another fight in between. I guess he could wait it out. But then what do you do with Umar? Like, again, when we're just talking about odd man out situations right now, when you're looking at the bantamweight division, obviously Merab Dvalishvili at champ, Sean O'Malley at 2, Sean O'Malley at 1, Petr Yan at 2, Umar at 3, Corey at 4, Deiveson at 5. Corey and Deiveson are fighting. Sean O'Malley's fighting the champ. That leaves Petr Yan, I don't know why I'm doing it like this, but that leaves Petr Yan and Umar as like the most clear matchup there. And I don't know if I necessarily understand it. I guess my thought is it should have been Petr Yan, Corey Sandhagen 2. You run that back. It was a fantastic fight the first time, and it gives you a clear number 1 contender after that fight is over. I know Corey's coming off of a loss. He lost to Umar, but that was a fight that was competitive for 1. 2, was like a big favor to the UFC. Like Corey taking that fight, that was a massive favor to the UFC. Now to put him in a position where he's still kind of second in line doesn't make a ton of sense for me. And then if Petr's fighting Umar, if Umar wins and Merab wins, now you're back in the same position. I don't think you run that back, at least not immediately. It doesn't make that much sense, but now you've lost your contender in Petr. And if Petr does win, I think either the Sean O'Malley or I think there's more intrigue in the Merab fight, although the first one was so one-sided. I think there's a little bit more intrigue in that just from the way that Petr has kind of made this resurgence after that skid that he went on. I think there's a little bit more intrigue into that. And then also I think, if you make the Petr-Corey fight, then we get Umar Deiveson Figueiredo, which is a awesome fucking fight. I mean, you just think about stylistically, Deiveson is a nasty grappler. Umar obviously has the wrestling pedigree. I think the exchanges on the ground would be fantastic. Then we get into some kind of dirty boxing on the feet. I think it's just stylistically a better matchup than Petr Yan Umar. Petr's a good wrestler in his own right, but if there's been a fault to Petr Yan, it has been the wrestling. We saw it with Merab. We even saw Song Yadong get a takedown against Petr Yan. So, I just think stylistically, Umar Deiveson is such a fantastic fight, and then Corey Petr gives you that clear-cut number 1, and then Umar Deiveson would give you that clear-cut number 2 that you're looking for when you're trying to parse out this division. If Sean O'Malley regains the belt, I think you can go any which way. You can go Petr, Umar, you could go Deiveson or Corey. Doesn't fucking matter. But if Merab holds, the only one that hasn't fought him is going to be Corey. And Deiveson, I guess. But they're both coming off of losses. And that's the problem with the thing. Deiveson has a loss to Petr. Corey has the loss to Umar. So it still feels like they're going to be behind him in the line until they either recapture that or, I just don't know. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? I hope that makes sense. But the other one that why do we keep, here's my other problem with this card, is why do we keep doing this to Bo Nickal? I mean, Rainier de Ritter, Bo Nickal is basically Paul Craig, Bo Nickal too. Is it not? Like, you just are throwing him in there with another guy that's not a great boxer and is highly skilled on the ground. So we saw what Bo did when he had that opposition. He chose to box. And I'm not saying he's going to have the same game plan against Rainier de Ridder. Maybe he does take him down this time, and maybe it is going to be more fun. But I think there were better matchups for Bo Nickal than Rainier de Ridder. I mean, this is by far Bo's, I'm not going to say worst performance, because, yeah, I'll say it, worst performance. All the other ones he's got finishes in. Like, stylistically, this is the hardest matchup for Bo Nickal because it puts him in a position where he's like, I don't know if I want to shoot the takedown because he's so high class on the ground. I think I can beat him boxing. We're putting him right back into that same position, which he got a lot of shit for. I think the UFC, if they wanted to build Bo back up, they could still give him a high-level competition. They could still put him in the top 15 and have more fun matchups. The one that initially I was picking for Bo Nickal when he came out of his last fight was Michel Pereira, which I still think is a fun fight. Let me see if he's still ranked. Is Michel Pereira still ranked? Yeah, Michel Pereira's 14 right now. Rainier de Ridder's 13. So you're basically giving them the same position, but from a selling standpoint, I feel like easier path to victory for Bo. Also, presumably more dangerous to the casual eyeballs that Bo brings. Bo Nickal is a blue chip prospect. He's got a lot of fanfare. When Bo fights, people tune in. People that don't usually tune into the UFC tune into Bo Nickal fights. So you can show a Michel Pereira highlight that makes you go, oh fuck, holy shit, Bo's in trouble. Like the build-up to that fight would be better. Truth be told, I mean, he just got ragdolled by Anthony Hernandez, who clearly is a bad motherfucker, but he just got ragdolled by Anthony Hernandez wrestling in his last fight. So probably easier path to victory for Bo than Rainier de Ridder, but I just don't think there's, I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing with Bo Nickal? Why are we putting him back into the same fight he was just in that did not, although he won, did not, get good press on his side? He gets a big win over Rainier de Ridder. He's now in the top 15. You can start working him up that chain, and that's awesome. But it could just be another stand and stare kind of fight where Bo's boxing a little bit. And I think he's going to be better for it this time. I think he probably learned a lot from his last one. Also just has more time progressing in the game of boxing. But it just feels like a dumb matchup. It feels like Paul Craig too. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I mean, if you wanted to get him into that top 15, sure, love that. We need fresh blood at 170. We got guys like Hamzat. We got guys like Caio Bahayo. We got guys like Nasruddin Imavov moving up the chain. We're kind of pushing those back guys down. The old blood of Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, Vettori, Roman Dolidze are fighting this week. Like, it feels like we're turning a new leaf in the middleweight division. Dricus Du Plessis holding the top. Hamzat should be getting the next shot. So I love Bo being in the top 15. I just think the matchup is dumb. Like, what? It's the same fucking matchup we just saw. I think both these matchups in Des Moines don't make a ton of sense for progressing their respective divisions. But that being said, I still think Davidson Figueiredo, Corey Sandhagen is a fantastic fucking fight. It's not that the fight's bad. I just don't think it makes a ton of sense. And we have UFC Fight Night this week. Marvin Vettori, Roman Dolidze. I don't even want to talk about it, so I'm not going to. It's a rematch. The first one wasn't great. I don't think it does a ton for the division. There's not a lot of fun fights on this card. I mean, if we're just looking at it, there's nothing that really jumps off the page that you go, oh, gotta watch this one. Not that there's bad fights on it, but Damon Blackshear, Cody Gibson actually is a pretty fun fight. Cody Gibson's looked pretty good as of late. Damon Blackshear, I think he won his last one. Didn't he pick up a dub? Beat Cody Stamann in his last fight via sub. But Cody in his last fight mostly grappled. Tougher test against Damon Blackshear and the level of grappling that he brings. That could be an interesting, fun fight. That's really all I'd say. I'm on the road. We're having fun. Today in combat, still coming at you. We got UFC 13. We kind of parsed out, at least I did, what I think is going to happen next for those guys. We talked about the weirdness of Des Moines, Iowa. Let me know if you agree with those takes. Am I in the wrong thinking those are weird matchups and there's could be better options? And then we got UFC Fight Night, Vittoria versus Delice 2 this week. Watch it if you want. Next week you have UFC London. It's a lot more fun. A lot of fun matchups on that. So more excited to talk about that one. We'll really dig deep into that because there's a ton of good fights on that card. But peace, love, like, subscribe. I'm out.